I haven't had the occasion to go to East Palestine. There's a lot going on here, and I just haven't been able to break. I was thinking whether I'd go to East Palestine this week, but I then was reminded I've got to go literally around the world.
He doesn't even pronounce it right. It's Palestine, the one here in America. All around the world, literally. President Biden heading to the G20 summit in India tomorrow, while criticized for still not paying a visit to the residents of East Palestine. Still struggling in the aftermath of the toxic train derailment 7 months later. Outnumbered co-host and former White House press secretary Kayleigh McEnany joins us now. Kayleigh, what's your reaction to that?
This is so remarkably tone deaf. Karine Jean-Pierre doubled down, said he'll be going to East Palestine. But I don't know that he'll be welcomed there. I interviewed Governor DeSantis. I know we'll get to that in a moment. And I was talking to some folks who were on the ground in Florida. And in Florida, they said that there were parts of the country where people's walls had fallen down, and they wrote very unwelcoming messages to Biden. There's a frustration in this country toward this president, especially the way he treats disasters. I imagine there's some political calculus on the part of the president. He goes to East Palestine, a place he did not even mention for weeks after this train derailment happened. I do not think he will be welcome there. I think it will be the same reaction he got in the state of Florida.
Maybe because it's been 7 or 8 months since it happened, and he still hasn't gone? It's ignoring Americans.
February 3rd is when it happened. Kamala gives a speech on the EPA 5 days later, doesn't mention it, on the environment. 15 days later, President Biden talks about train and rail and doesn't mention it, and then doesn't go to visit. It's remarkable.
Seems political because they didn't vote for him, but they did in Hawaii, and he was in Hawaii right after.
Right.
All right, so what's the latest on the student loan forgiveness? Because I know Biden's been pushing this, then the Supreme Court blocked it. Now what's happening with this?
So what's happening is Biden had the HEROES Act, which he tried to ram student loan forgiveness through. Didn't happen, struck down by the Supreme Court. So now he's trying to go via the Higher Education Act. But when you look at it and you get down to brass tacks, it's purely political. You look at 60% of 18 to 29 voters voted for him in 2020. His approval's now at 37%. He is desperate to con young people to vote for him. This is a ploy. Some people might get their loans forgiven. But what about the interest rates? You can't afford a home if you're a young person. This is Bidenomics.
Yeah, even if it doesn't happen, he's able to say, I tried. And it's great on the campaign trail. It's a good message for the young people.
You're exactly right. And young people, their big frustration with Biden is the word ineffective. They think he's ineffective. But to your point, he can say, I tried.
Right. But they're like, well, it never happened. So.
It wasn't effective.
Right, exactly. Okay, you went down, you interviewed Ron DeSantis. It was after everything that happened in Florida. I know that your house got a lot of water, 6 inches of water down there. Your family's business was destroyed because of this. Tell us your personal story and your sit down with Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, I have some family in Cedar Key. Their business just totally wiped out. The main eye of the storm went through Keaton Beach. There you had
Cedar
homes.
Keys, that little island. That
Cedar Keys, little island.
Yeah.
I have family there. Keaton Beach, homes just destroyed, literally moved off their foundation. So crazy to have President Biden say, you know, he has no home at a time when Americans literally don't have a home. And I asked Governor DeSantis about those comments. He called them odd. He hadn't heard them at the time from President Biden. But to Governor DeSantis's response effort, I got a report this morning at 6 a.m., 98% of power restored. As I drove north to Perry, Florida, there were lines down. And these linemen, just for miles and miles, these linemen have restored 98% of power, marshaled by the governor. And beyond that, 63 out of 67 school districts open today, 67 out of 67 open tomorrow. And that's an effective response.
That's great. All right, let's roll some tape. You want to set up this soundbite? This is the first one we have. DeSantis reacting to Joe Biden.
Joe Biden came to town, came to Florida, a place he wasn't necessarily welcomed at the time, and said that you're unintelligent if you question climate change as it pertains to hurricanes. And you could take a listen. President Biden also said, when standing here in the state of Florida, nobody intelligent can deny the impact of climate crises.
I study history, and they act like this is somehow unprecedented. It's not. This area, the Big Bend, got hit by a storm, almost the exact same track in 1896 that had 125-mile-per-hour winds. So the idea that we've not had powerful storms until recently, that's just not factually true. And so when that's the first thing they want to say, you have to ask, why are you trying to politicize the weather?
All right, so that's a little taste of it. And he's saying, I've studied this, and I believe it, because he is Ivy League trained, and he is he loves to read.
Yeah, well, you go from a congressman to running one of the biggest states in the country, managing disasters, and getting bipartisan praise even from Biden's FEMA director, or excuse me, from Obama's FEMA director. But I interview him on more issues, on women's issues like abortion. We have some news there. We'll be on Newsroom. Full interview on Outnumbered.
Yeah, his staff says he's so educated when he is faced with an issue, and in Florida he has to deal with a lot of hurricanes, that he will study it.
Yes.
And he will learn the ins and outs and what causes it, and then be able to have these press conferences and know what he's talking about.
And it's very clear, as a Florida born and raised girl, it used to take days to get power back on, and to get it back pretty much immediately is a pretty big thing.
Big, huge. I've experienced it for like 10 days, and it's awful.
It is.
Yeah, you have to move all your food, and it's not fun.
No.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.